A second active tuberculosis case has now been identified in the Chicago suburbs, this time at Joliet West High School. A letter was sent to families last week notifying them of the diagnosis and identifying students who may have had prolonged exposure to the infected person. Now, this is important because TB is not easily transmitted. So to help explain what this is and what it means for families, I am joined by Dr. Gary Rayshak, that is, of Woodstock Hospital. Doctor, thank you for joining me.
Pleasure to be here.
Okay, so first of all, for the parents who are at home listening right now, what's your message to them?
So one thing, and like you just mentioned about tuberculosis, although it is an infectious disease, it requires extended, prolonged exposure to be passed from one person to the other. Generally, in school with another student, it's not going to be spread from student to student. However, it's very important that any parents who did get the letter that their child was exposed to consult with their pediatrician to discuss the next steps that would be required to test for tuberculosis to make sure that the student has not picked up the infection.
Okay, so what are the symptoms, just in case, that people should be watching out for?
Now, most people who are going to test positive for tuberculosis are going to be asymptomatic and have no symptoms. When people do have tuberculosis symptoms, though, you're going to expect cough, fever, weight loss, lots of night sweats, and just a general feeling ill.
And so is there any risk of prolonged effects of TB if you do get it?
Yes. So TB is a very significant illness if you do get it. And it requires a very long course of antibiotics to properly heal. Because of this, it's very important that we know who has the disease and who does not. So if you have any concerns at all, even if you did not get one of these letters from the public health department or the school, please make sure you talk to your provider so they could perform any testing that would be indicated.
Okay, and then a couple more questions for you here before we wrap up. What is involved in the test, and is there a vaccine that families should consider? So
the test is typically a very simple test. Some of you may remember when you were a child getting that little prick test where they just kind of poke your skin with a little needle. Nowadays, though, there is a much more reliable test, which is a standard blood test.
Okay.
There is a vaccine for tuberculosis, but it is not used in the United States. People who were born in other countries, particularly throughout Southeastern Asia, may have already received the vaccine. And they would also, if you had received the vaccine, your testing for tuberculosis may be altered, where it may give you a false positive. So it's very important if you do think you received the vaccine earlier in life to make sure you let your doctor know.
Okay, I want to ask you too, we want to switch gears just a bit, but an issue I know you can address as well, and that is measles. We have reported cases of measles in Indiana, and there's this nationwide outbreak going on. Let's talk about that. Measles and the symptoms, what should people look out for?
So with measles, the classic symptoms will be that rash. The rash will typically be a rash that develops on the face and then spreads downward to the body and then out to the arms and legs. Prior to developing that, though, most people who have measles will develop congestion, inflamed eyes, irritated eyes, and cough. And the early stages of measles could be indistinguishable from the common cold. And that's why it's very important that all children go and receive the recommended vaccines, because those who do receive the recommended vaccines have a significantly decreased chance of contracting measles.
I remember in 2000 doing a news story about the fact that the measles had basically been eradicated, that they thought it was gone. So what happened? Why are we seeing these cases again?
The measles is coming back in the United States simply because of a drop in the herd immunity. And this is something that people have mentioned multiple times. But as people are foregoing the recommended vaccines, it's giving the virus an opportunity to take hold within the community and continue to spread from one patient to the next. It's very important that people get their vaccines when they're young to keep this from being an issue that they could spread once they reach school age.
So is it a one and done kind of thing, or should parents be considering a booster at this time?
So the standard course for measles vaccination would be receiving their first shot just after 1 year of age, and then they receive a second one, typically age 4 to 5. Those who receive both of their shots are going to have a 97% chance of being completely immune to measles. In certain cases, such as if you're traveling to a high measles area under 1 year of age, sometimes an extra dose will be given, but it's very important to consult with the local Department of Public Health before giving any extra boosters.
Doctor, thank you so much.
The best thing everyone could do watching this is make sure that they have their vaccines and that the children in their lives are going to their pediatrician to receive their vaccines.
Great advice to end with. Thank you so much for helping us to break this down. I know a lot of parents and people are concerned. We appreciate your time.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you.